Hello, friends. Thank you for joining me again today. And as the title says there, I am doing a crazy experiment, okay? And I seriously considered, of course, doing this without your company, because one thing is for sure, I have no idea what I'm doing. Well, I know what I plan on doing, but I have no idea if it's going to work. So let's get official. Hi, my name's Dan. Daily Art Adventure number 958, experiments. Woohoo! So let me tell you what I'm going to do here. I've been wanting to get around to this experiment for a long time and just haven't been able to. I am working here on a damaged canvas, partly because I don't want to be terribly tempted to turn this into a masterpiece. You know what I mean? I don't even want that temptation. I just want to be able to do some crazy stuff without worrying about how it's going to turn out. So I'm actually working on a canvas that's got cracked gesso. We have some terrible noise, don't we? Here we go. That's crazy. Glad I caught it though. All right. So the experiment here is in masking. If you follow my channel much, then you know that most of my paintings start out, this is a heat gun, it's going to make some noise, but not as noisy as a hairdryer. Most of my paintings start out just like this, as a purely abstract mess, purely abstract swashy mess. I don't have time for this. I don't even have time to wait for it to dry. So let's brush. Okay, just a happy mess. That's all that's supposed to be. Okay, I think I thinned out some of the thick spots. All right, so this is a heat gun, by the way, not a hairdryer. Woe be to the person that ever makes that mistake. It looks kind of like a hairdryer, old-fashioned hairdryer, but it says here, nozzle heat exceeds 400 degrees. Those of you who bake have some idea what that means. So you can severely burn yourself. Anyway, just a word, it's generally not a great idea to use a blow dryer, probably even a heat gun, on acrylics. Generally, I don't care right now because this is just a crazy experiment. But generally, it's not a good idea because you tend to just dry the surface layer and have some wet. At least you have to watch out for that. If you're in a hurry when you're doing acrylics and you just dry the top layer, there's a danger that you could just be drying the top and not underneath. So just watch out for that. I think the heat gun is a little safer than a normal hairdryer. All right. So that's my initial abstract. Now the experimenting begins. Several weeks ago, I ordered myself a great big bottle of old-fashioned rubber cement. So I'm going to put some of this, especially on any areas of the painting that, of the abstract, that look particularly interesting to me. Like, oh, that's a nice piece. I'd like to keep that little passage. All right, that's good enough. Now, some of you know, unless I have a bottle of Bestine, which I actually do down in the garage, this brush is hereby permanently dedicated to rubber cement. You really can't clean rubber cement unless you have Bestine, which none of you do because it's a toxic, forbidden product probably, but I have it because I'm an old artist. All right, I'm going. And back in the 90s, they used to still sell stuff like that. All right, I'm going to try this again. You got to wonder how healthy is it to be drying rubber cement. I've got an air conditioner, central air vent blowing on me from above. That might help a little bit. So the idea here is, the experiment is, I'm going to do some more acrylics on top of this. Come on, come on, come on. And see if I can leave it just like that. It might be a tiny bit wet still. I want to see if the rubber cement will actually resist or act as a mask for the acrylics. Okay. This experiment might be over really quickly. We find that it really doesn't work. The reason I'm doing this is I am serious about finding some kind of technique, some kind of material that actually will act as an effective resist or mask that I can, of course, remove, that I can take off, that will act as a resist or mask for acrylics and oils. Acrylics, not so difficult. I'm not sure that a rubber cement will work, but it might. We'll find out. We'll all find out here shortly. The real question is, what can you use as a mask for oils? And I have, to answer that question, that my experiment today is I'm going to try encaustic wax. They're the same wax that our encaustic friends use when they're doing their encaustic. So I've got a little, actually got my pancake griddle over there. I've never had my pancake griddle upstairs in my studio before. Today's a first. I'm the one that usually cooks pancakes and French toast in the house. Not the only, by any means, but probably more than anybody else. So that's my pancake griddle over there with a little glass dish of melted encaustic wax in it. Some of you, if you're not a regular follower, then you're wondering why do I want a mask? Well, that's a very good question. If you watch me often, again, this is not very dissimilar. This is quite similar to the way I normally start a representational painting. But through the months and, no, years, through the years, I've discovered many, over and over again, that I wish I could retain more of my initial abstract marks while I put layers and layer and layer and layer and layer on top of. All right, let's see. Okay, that's mostly dry. The edge is not dry. I didn't blow that very much. So I'm trying to figure out a mechanical way, if you will, a chemical mechanical way, instead of just painting around things, you know. That would be the question. Why don't you just don't paint that area? Well, yeah, easier for me, evidently easier said than done. All right, so here's experiment number 1 is, am I going to be able to pull that rubber cement off now that I've painted acrylic on top of it? I have here a ball of actually masking fluid, but very similar to rubber cement. All right, so step number 1. Let's see how well this works. So I'm rubbing through that last layer of acrylics and seeing if I can pull off. One thing I do know is that you do not want rubber cement, any rubber cement left on your painting, because rubber cement is extremely volatile, non-archival. Rubber cement will turn brown, very, very brown, dark brown, in a matter of months or years. So I don't want any vestiges. So for that reason, you know, rubber cement may not be the best choice for masking. And one of the questions is, am I going to be? You can't see it. I can't see it at all, and I didn't take careful notes to record where I put it the first time. The question is, will I be able to feel? And so far, it's looking like, yeah, for the most part. All right, that's the most dramatic stroke right there, and that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. So right now, I'm at this second, I'm rather encouraged by that effect. That right there. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see that has the feeling of a mask. That is to say, the original underpainting is clearly is showing through without any of the glaze on top blocking it. Again, I have essentially a ball of rubber cement here in my hand. It's not very easy. Is that all the mask I put on? See, I'm quite concerned. I should have taken better notes, shouldn't I? I have very little doubt that I'll need to do this experiment more than once, because I'm not sure that I'm feeling. Is that rubber? Is that an area right there? I'm not sure that I'm actually feeling all the rubber cement. It doesn't seem to me like that the acrylic would cover the rubber cement so thoroughly that I can't feel it. But I'm a little insecure in that assumption, as you can see. Okay, so I'm going to do another application then of rubber cement. And once again, so everything right now is abstract. I'm going to do another application. Again, just putting rubber cement on any part of this abstract that I particularly like. I'm not at all trying to recover the initial, the part I masked initially. That would sort of negate part of the beauty of this process, if you will. All right, enough. I'm sorry that this broadcast is going to be rather boring. It's got way too much drying stuff, blow drying in it. Hang on a second. I am going to open my studio door to get a little bit more air flowing through here. I don't imagine rubber cement fumes are that good for you. Is this one of the glues that, glue sniffers sniff? I don't know. I doubt it. I don't know. Anybody a glue sniffer out there? Want to tell me how high on the list of preferred sniffables is rubber cement? I hope not very. Honestly, I'm not trying to get high, I promise. I'm getting down where I'm trying to see the reflection, to see the shiny bits, because the rubber cement is shinier than the stuff around it. Let's see if that feels dry. Yeah, mostly. All right. Going to change gears here slightly. I want to do kind of like I do in my representational painting. At this point, I would very often start drawing something. So I'm still going to just do a purely non-objective or abstract painting. But it's going to have some geometric shapes in it. Again, so I'm not at all painting around the rubber cement. I'm just painting whatever I feel like painting, ignoring any rubber cement that's there. Does that make sense? Sorry for any of you who tuned in today hoping to see me do something like maybe like the portrait I just finished. I did finish the portrait, by the way, and I will post it on my community page here in a little while. Hello, Van Gogh. Hello, David. That's a thought. A magic eraser, David says. Oh, getting the acrylic off. That's a thought. Wow. Well, I'm certainly open to experimenting. That's what this whole thing is, isn't it? Okay, maybe two more lines. I know. Let me do another glaze visually interacting with those lines. So that is to say, I'm like coloring in the lines, if you will, or outside the lines, as the case may be. But making the glazes I'm doing right now relate in some way to the glazes that are there. All right, good enough. I'm not going to dry it again. That shouldn't take too long to dry, because most of the acrylics I just put on are quite thin. Do some nice drips there. Good. I like drips. So I have some degree of confidence that the rubber cement and acrylic combination can be made to work. I am much more unsure about the oil. I mean, if anybody has any ideas, what would you use to mask when you're working in oil? You know, put something on your canvas, then paint oil on top of it, and then lift the mask off. I mean, it's conceivable that rubber cement, I may be doing the wrong way around. Maybe maybe rubber cement would work great with oil. I don't know. Now, once again, can I feel? Yeah, okay, so I can feel the sticky area up here pretty well. See, some of the fun is already happening, because when I was doing these lines, again, I wasn't trying to remember at all where I had put the rubber cement, and now by removing the rubber cement, of course, I'm removing the lines that are on top of them and achieving a surprise to myself, which is a good way to describe how I want this process to affect my representational paintings. In other words, like for instance, my cityscapes, which is the biggest single category of my artwork in the last 15 years has been cityscapes, and I've been on this journey to try to figure out for a long time to have my paintings both more accurate, realistic, detailed, accurate, realistic, whichever word you want to use, and more messy at the same time. And it's the more detailed, more accurate is easy. That part's easy. You just draw more carefully, take more time. It's the more messy part that I'm finding is the challenge. I did a painting back in January or February, a big 40 by 60 or something like that cityscape, where I used packaging tape. I mean, just clear tape, and stuck it on the canvas and used that as a mask, and then pulled it off. And the effect was pretty good, except you can't do that, I don't think, in oils. You can only do it in acrylics. So I was somewhat happy with the effect in the oils, but in the acrylics, but was not very happy with I was not able to do any masking in oils. Isn't this crazy? Okay, I'm going to do, I'm not going to continue this forever. I'm going to do one more layer of rubber cement and acrylics. I'm going to try this time maybe putting it on a little thicker, maybe. And once again, I'm thinking in purely abstract terms. I'm looking at any part of the canvas that has a little passage, a little bit that I like. That's really fun. It's like, ooh, that part right there, that catches my fancy. Of course, not at all in a realistic way, just in a purely abstract manner. Well, I like that right there. All right, forgive me for more blow drying. Here we go. That's so thick it's starting to run. That's going to take forever to dry. So. I'm not above using my fingers. Yeah, that thick thing didn't work very well. And again, for you newcomers, normally at this point in my layers, I would be well into drawing the subject matter, whatever it is. In my case, of course, very often a cityscape or architecture of some kind. But could also be a portrait, and I would love to. One of these days, I promise, one of these days, I'm going to have the freedom to do portraits the way I want to do them. I just finished a portrait this morning. Some of you followed me finishing that, and I was quite happy with it, but it was very tame, very, very, very tame, very conservative. And I don't think I want to go quite as crazy as Christian Hook. We've talked about him quite a bit in the last year. Christian Hook from Scotland, I think. He won the some big British portrait competition. I love his stuff. I don't want necessarily to go quite as crazy as he is, but I'd like to inch in that direction somewhat. And I would love it if this masking technique. I will keep experimenting, I promise, until I find. I'm pretty committed to finding something that works, even if this particular recipe does not work. All right, is that dry? Pretty tacky. I don't really know if it's dry or not, but I'm going to try anyway. What else are you guys saying? Hello, Ade, and pink haze pie, and Kaz. Silicone to mask oil. No kidding. Silicone spray. And Travis says silicone caulking compound. Ooh, like it comes in a caulking gun, like, you know, a tube of silicone. That is a very interesting idea. Good, thank you. If this doesn't work, I'll try that. Try that next. Well, hey, buddy.
I'm hiding from Papa.
You're hiding. Oh, hiding from Papa? Yeah. Okay. I just got company. Okay. I have really missed doing abstracts for a while. They scratch an itch that representational stuff doesn't do. Very different. I don't really even put them in the same, I don't know what's the word, degree of seriousness in my in my painting life. They are serious, but not as serious as the representational stuff, honestly. And they're great fun. Anyway, been a while, so I'll just try to stay tuned to when is the right time to do some more abstracts. So I'm doing one today, aren't I? I love teaching abstract painting. I really do. I think it's partly because I've got a what's the word? I get irritated by seeing so much. Forgive me, I sound arrogant. What do I consider to be bad abstract painting? That I love trying to teach intelligent There are a lot of people that are already doing that. I'm by no means unique. There are a lot of people teaching what I just called intelligent abstraction. But I would like to be one among that number. I think I posted on my community page not too long ago, sometime in the last several months, a document called 6, I think, categories of abstract painting, which is one of my primary teaching documents for abstract painting. Just breaking the world of abstract painting down into 6 categories. And then the question is, well, which category is the best, or which approach is the best? My basic answer is all of them. Try to employ as many of these impulses in abstract painting as you can. That's all I'm going to say about that, because I don't have the energy to get into a whole full-blown lecture on abstract painting at the moment. Good to see you, David, by the way. Haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're doing okay. Have you been on holiday? You Canuck, you. All Canucks go on holiday in August. I say that, of course, with great affection, because I is one, or at least I was one, and still have great affection for my home country. I don't know if you've ever heard me say one of my younger brothers, who has lived in Japan for 40 years, went back to his Canadian citizenship several years ago. Isn't that funny? An American living in Japan went back to his Canadian citizen, and he was born in the States, so he was always a dual citizen. All right, I think I'm experimenting enough. Whoops, my wife is calling me. I sure hope it's not urgent. Okay, tell you what, gang. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pause this broadcast right there. Hang on. Let's. I don't know if you could hear my wife saying hello or not. So, brief pause while this dries, while I talk to my wife, and I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, thanks. Hang on. I'll be back in just a minute. Right, are we back in operation? We are. Hello, thank you for hanging in there. A few of you. Most of my friends left me. This time, again, just experimenting. I'm finding I'm not using my ball of rubber cement. just using my fingers because I'm finding I can actually feel where the rubber cement is. I seem to be able to feel it better. I don't know if that's because I put it on more thickly or if it's because the layers of acrylic underneath were, there was more acrylic underneath, therefore more of a plastic surface onto which I applied the earlier rubber cement. Once again, one way to describe this whole process is it needs to surprise me. If it doesn't surprise me, like if I know what's going to happen, then I'm sort of losing some of the effect that I'm after here. I want to be surprised what it is that comes off. And many of you would say, well, how do you know it's going to be a good painting if you don't know what it is that, where it's going to come off? The answer is quite simple. You ready? At every layer of the painting process, I want there to be a pleasant painting on the canvas. So that, like this, clearly, do you see here's a masked area coming through. Well, is this ugly? No, because that was an attractive bit of the paint. Same thing. And this right here is working really nice right here. I'm not disappointed. I like the way this is sort of, it has a muted pinkish mauvey, almost mauvey tone here, and then where the mask was up here, that's some bright orange coming through. That's the kind of surprises I'm looking for. All right, so I have put away all of my acrylics. Things are getting serious now. I love the idea that one of you said about having a silicone of some type. Right there is my. Oh, and it's still covered up pretty much with the end of my portrait painting color, so I don't want that. Let's take just a minute to clean that up really quickly. There's no such thing as a perfect palette solution. For the last 15 or more years, this has been my choice, which is glass with a backing board. The brown that I have on the back it's a little bit too chroma. It's a little bit too reddish of a brown. I wish it were duller, but I've gotten really used to it. It's better than white still. And of course I could redo it. It's a hassle, and it has. I didn't mean to get into a discussion about my palette, but since we're on the subject, so it's 1/4-inch glass, gator board, white gator board, painted this color, and then aluminum edging. You can buy this kind of aluminum at any building supply store. This edging is traditionally designed to go on the edge of plywood for a shelf, like in a warehouse, a stocking shelf. They have plywood, and they have all, this aluminum comes in all different thicknesses to match the thicknesses of plywood. So it's a very, very useful product, aluminum edging. All right, so here we go. Let's see if this glass dish is too hot. No, good. I've had my my pancake griddle set at a fairly low temperature for many minutes over there. And now I'm looking, I should have gone hunting for, oh well, it doesn't matter too much. I'm going to use a fan brush. Not my favorite fan brush, just any old fan brush. All right, let's get you guys off my palette, back on the painting. So here we go. My first time I've ever used encaustic wax, which is beeswax mixed with Damar varnish, I think is the traditional. So the idea here, oh, I smell that beeswax. When I was a kid, when I was in junior high school, for several years, my job, the 4 years that I was in junior high school. No, that's not true. Several years though, junior high and early high school, I worked for a man who made his living from maple syrup and honey. So I was his main assistant, and it was very fascinating work. All right, so this, just for what it's worth, this is showing me how fast does this stuff dry or harden, and the answer is pretty quickly. Also, I don't think I've ruined this brush, because I think I could dump this in some boiling water and get all that wax out of there pretty quickly. But I don't know, that's the least of my concerns right now. All right, so my wax should be drying pretty quickly. I'm going to put out some fresh liquid on my palette, and I'm going to make some glazes. And I'm going to do what I typically do on all of my paintings, which is after the acrylic layer, I do an oil glaze over the entire canvas, different colors, whatever colors I want. So that's coming up next. Let's see how this feels. Yeah, okay. The wax is definitely dry. Of course, that didn't take long, as I expected. Now here's the big question. Well, two things. I'm a little bit ahead of you. After I put oil on this, your question should be, how am I going to get the wax off? And my answer is, because this is the tool I've used a lot over the last 20 years, is a heat gun. I'm going to melt the wax, and I'm hoping that the melted wax will somehow come through the oil glaze and run off the canvas. Now, part of the reason for this experiment I chose Encaustic wax, of course, is because it's a trusted, tried, archival painting product. So if my paintings end up, which I'm sure they will, with at least tiny bits of encaustic in them, doesn't matter, because unlike the rubber cement, which would be disastrous because it'll turn dark brown quite quickly, the encaustic is quite stable and won't hurt. So that's my thinking. We're all going to find out together. Believe me, I seriously considered doing all of this without your company. I thought, first time I should do it without a company, because what if it's just a disaster? And I thought, what the heck? You guys you probably get more fun out of watching a disaster than you would watching everything go well. All right, I'm going to start. I so often start on my oxide red. It's one of my favorite glazing colors. Isn't that beautiful? Such a beautiful color. Oxide red, which, as you can see, is not red for you beginners. The painting world has a number of colors that are not what they see. Yellow ochre is not yellow, it's brown. Do not think of it as yellow, think of it as brown. And there's English red. Red light is not red, it's brown. English red is not red, it's brown. And oxide red is not red, it's brown. Naples yellow is not yellow, it's brown. Very, very pale brown. But that is really pretty. That's just for fun. Let's go to one of my other favorite. I have a number of favorites in the glazing world. This is the second, which is permanent rose. Just, so beautiful when it's glazed out like this. And dioxazine violet, also very nice. And Indian yellow. Now, if you want to paint like me, using lots and lots of layers of glazes, then you have to change some of your color theory. The colors are not the same in the transparent world as they are in the opaque or straight out of the tube world. And for yellow, you need Indian yellow. There's no substitute. You can't use CAD yellow or Hansa yellow, any of those. So that's what I just put on my brush right here. It's Indian yellow. All right, how many think that looks pretty? you don't, I don't know what's wrong with you. Once again, let's do what I pretty much typically do with my representational painting. After putting the glaze on, I take some of it off. Isn't that lovely? Sound a little bit like Bob Ross or something for a second. All right, so first of all, let me just tell you what's happening when I put the glaze, when I put the oil glaze on top of the wax. It was easy to see where the wax was because the wax actually did resist the oil glaze and appeared as a slightly lighter. It didn't resist completely, just so much so it appeared lighter. Now that I've wiped some off, I really can hardly see it anymore. So the challenge before me right now is, of course, this is completely wet, oil wet. Now it's with a liquid. So if I walked away for even an hour, as this is mostly liquid, it would be dry, at least tacky dry, if not dry to the touch, in an hour, and that's not very long. And I may discover that in order to do this technique, at least with the wax, I might have to wait that hour. But I'm going to go ahead now. What I'm doing right now is I've got the 400 degrees far enough from the canvas that I'm not really trying to melt the wax yet. That'll come here in just a minute. Let's go ahead. Right here, there's some wax. Let's see what happens. Whoa! Well, it certainly melts quickly. That's nice. Ooh. Okay, now, what would happen if, while it's wet, but the problem with wiping it off with a rag is that I'm lifting off. I'm not getting that nice masked edge. I'm getting a wipe-off edge, a soft edge. What would happen if I just melt it and then let it run? Well, that'll be beautiful, and I like runs. But if I do that, then I'm going to end up with a lot of encaustic on my finished painting. I'm not sure that's what I want. So let's just do one more. You guys probably can't see it, but one nice thing about the encaustic is it melts and turns glossy and begins to run almost immediately. So it's not hard to find at all. See, but I'm not getting, because I'm having to wipe it, I'm not getting, it's okay. I'm not getting that hard edge, which again, maybe that's okay. I'm not getting a mask look. Again, it's not, but I am getting some masking done. I'm going to do some more in a minute, so this is not the end of this experiment, of course. What I'm thinking, though, is if I walked away for an hour so that this glaze was dry, then I came back and melted the wax, the glaze would stay in place except where the wax is. Does that make sense? I'm just going to run my heat gun across the canvas and see if I get an explosion of wax here anywhere. Oh, yep, right there. So, that's quite nice. That's a soft edge, but that's quite nice. It's going back to the original. Oh, here's a whole bunch of wax up here. There we go. The question should be, well, if you're rubbing it off with a rag, couldn't you accomplish the same thing just by using rag? Just put on the glaze over the whole thing and then rub it vigorously where you want the wax to come off, or I mean the color to come off. That is indeed a very good question. Oh, there's some wax down there. Yeah. Now, I have several questions about my experiment here. One is, is there any way I can do this out in the street? And the answer is, of course, that'd be rather difficult to take a heat gun. I mean, I do have a portable power box I could take with me. It could run a heat gun without any trouble, but it's very heavy. It's on wheels, but it weighs 150 pounds. Now, I have another question, besides all the ones that I've just encountered. My next question is, what happens if I put wax on top of a not yet dry glaze? Well, I'm going to do it anyway, even though I think I know what's going to happen. Is that unlike the acrylics, where the acrylic layer was dry, I put a mask on top of it and then pulled the mask off, the acrylic layer stayed. Whereas here, well, let's just do a tiny bit. Here, what's going to happen is if I put wax on top of a wet glaze, that when I melt that, it's going to lift the glaze off. That's a weakness. So the solution seems to me would be I have to wait. It would have been better even if I had waited. So let's do this. I'm going to end this broadcast shortly and bring you in again when I'm at the next step, layer, whatever. I'm going to put on another layer of wax rather randomly. Again, trying somewhat to put it especially on passages that I'm particularly fond of, parts of the painting that I like the way they look right now. And by you see some drip running going on, and once again, I really tend to like runs. So, all right. So, but here's what I'm going to do. Here's how the experiment's going to go now. I love the smell of this. It smells to me almost exactly like beeswax. I am going to pause this broadcast, and I'm going to give this the glaze that's already there at least 45 minutes to dry. Then I'll come back and lift off the wax and see what happens. All right? Thank you for being a part of this crazy stuff. Let me see what other chats you guys are saying. Thank you, Wanda. Appreciate that compliment about my this morning. The rubber cement does seem to come off pretty well. I love pink haze pie. I could do as crazy as Christian Hook, then don't. I like that idea. That resonates. And David says use turpentine in a squirt bottle to get a removal effect. So paint it on first and then spray it off. That would work in the early glaze stages, wouldn't work in the later detail stages, because with the spray I would lose the detail. But who knows? Who knows? He doesn't think wax will work. Maybe not. Hello, Jane. Nice to have you. Thank you for your encouragement. All right. Thank you, gang. I'll start another broadcast probably. In 45 minutes, I'm thinking. I know that won't work with everybody's schedule, but I can leave my oil there, that it won't dry. But I hope that will dry. All right. Thanks again for your company. Appreciate it. Bye-bye. See you in a while. Bye-bye.